Taksim Square, Istanbul, the octagon of Turkish street politics, a royal rumble where generations of Turks have come to battle for their country's future.
But Taksim Square today is a green, peace-loving space.
Home to Gezi Park and Istiklal Caddesi, and the birthplace of Turkish football, built on the ruins of an Ottoman-Japanese opium factory. In the 1600s, Galata became so crowded that people started moving uphill to a previously rural area called Pera. A new street, the Grand Rue de Pera, developed along the ridge at the top of the hill, today's Istiklal Caddesi. The whole northern half of Istiklal Caddesi remained undeveloped until 1731, when the northmost point was chosen as the location of a new water system, or Taksim in Ottoman Turkish. In 1806, a military barracks was built over an Armenian cemetery at the northwestern corner of the junction, carving out Taksim Square. Alongside it was a factory belonging to the suspiciously named Oriental Products Company that produced opium, of which the Ottoman Empire was one of the world's biggest exporters. In the 1800s, the liberalizing Tanzimat reforms removed limits on the size of non-Muslim religious buildings, prompting local Greeks to build the huge Aya Triada Church on the corner of Taksim Square, the first domed church built in the city for 500 years. See our Cihangir video for more. In 1909, the Tanzimat reforms caused a mutiny among conservative elements of the Ottoman army, including the garrison at the Taksim barracks. They wanted to end the Republican Young Turk movement and restore the absolute rule of the famously grumpy Sultan Abdülhamid II, who had banned alcohol, gambling, and football. The uprising was put down, with 74 dead, and a monument to the incident was raised in Shishli, as covered in our Mecidiyeköy video. After World War I, the Sultan died, and northern Istanbul was occupied by the British, who moved into the Taksim barracks and administered the city from the nearby British embassy, covered in our South Taksim video. They started organizing football matches in a field next to Taksim Square, popularizing the sport among locals and laying the foundations of Istanbul's first football teams. Matches between local Turks and British soldiers started attracting huge crowds. After the British occupiers were chased out by Kemal Atatürk, a local sports journalist managed to have the courtyard of the military barracks turned into a football pitch. The entire building was converted into Taksim Stadium in 1921, the first football stadium in Turkey, where the Turkish national football team played its first match against Romania in 1923. Following international pressure in the 1930s, the opium trade was regulated and the opium factory shut down.
In 1941, the stadium was demolished to make way for the only green space in the area, Gezi Park.
There followed the construction of some of Istanbul's most famous hotels around it, the Marmara and the Sheraton, these days the Intercontinental. Another big name to grace Taksim Square was James Bond, when scenes from Russia with Love were filmed here in 1963. Appropriately, and around the same time, one of the world's biggest movie industries appeared on Istiklal Caddesi, and Taksim entered a golden age of celebrities, nightclubs, and partying hard, covered in our North Taksim video. But tough times lay ahead. Attacks on the local Greek population saw Aya Triada Church looted and burned in 1955, after which many Christians moved away and their abandoned homes were occupied by migrants, refugees, and their discontents. In 1986, Taksim was divided in half by Tarlabaşı Boulevard, destroying many historical buildings, turning Taksim Square into a giant transport hub, and leaving Tarlabaşı a no-go area for decades, as covered in our Tarlabaşı video. This tense atmosphere and central location made Taksim Square the setting of the infamous showdowns between communists, nationalists, and security forces in the 1960s and 70s. 2 people died and over 200 were injured on Bloody Sunday in 1969, and 36 demonstrators were killed at the Taksim Square massacre on May Day 1977. Taksim Square gained international notoriety when 2 Leeds United fans were killed during clashes with Galatasaray supporters in 2000. Promising to tackle Taksim's petty crime and congestion, local man Recep Tayyip Erdogan from nearby Kasımpaşa was elected mayor of Istanbul in 1994 and then Prime Minister of Turkey in 2003. One of his flagship policies was to tidy up Taksim and Tarlabaşı, pedestrianize Taksim Square, and rebuild the army barracks on Gezi Park as a shopping center and event space. Work got underway in 2010. By 2013, the project had become politicized, and its final stages saw the eruption of the Gezi Park protests in the summer of 2013, when Gezi Park was occupied for a whole month. The park was eventually cleared, but left a tense political landscape that survives to this day. But looking at Gezi Park today, you wouldn't have guessed any of this happened. The building plans were scrapped, and Gezi Park was made safer and more accessible by removing the McDonald's that had cut it off from the rest of Taksim Square. Since then, buildings have been restored, museums have opened, and the newly pedestrianized space makes Taksim Square and Gezi Park a great place to have a look around, instead of the scruffy traffic junction it was just 10 years ago. The Taksim water system was built at the highest point in the area, giving Taksim Square and eventually the whole area its current name. Today, it houses the Turkish Republic Museum, documenting the reforms of Kemal Atatürk. In the distribution building next to it, you can still see the system's pipes, one for each of the surrounding neighborhoods. Behind the system is the towering Ottoman revivalist Taksim Mosque, with a capacity for 3,000 people. It was opened amid much controversy in 2021 as the only large mosque built in Taksim since Ottoman times. The Republic Monument in the center of Taksim Square was unveiled in 1928, 5 years after the events it depicts, the Turkish War of Independence, when Kemal Atatürk defeated the foreign occupiers after World War I before founding the Turkish Republic in 1923. The Taksim Tram's 3 stops cover the length of Istiklal Caddesi in 15 minutes. The original horse-drawn Taksim Tram was removed in the 1960s to make way for cars, and returned in its current form in the 90s after Istiklal Caddesi was pedestrianized. Talimhane was once a field where some of Turkey's first professional football matches were held, and has since become central Istanbul's main hotel district. Next to that, Cumhuriyet Caddesi takes you north to Harbiye, Nişantaşı, and Kurtuluş, all of which are covered in separate videos, listed in the description. Gezi Park was previously the site of an Armenian cemetery, an Ottoman army barracks, an opium factory, and Turkey's first football stadium, before Gezi Park was built in the 1940s. The Istanbul Sheraton was built in the 1970s and later became the Intercontinental Hotel Taksim. The view from the bar on the top floor is worth the price of a drink. The Ataturk Cultural Center was originally built in 1969, only to be gutted by fire a year later, occupied during the Gezi Park protests, then refurbished and reopened with restaurants and art galleries in 2021. İnönü Caddesi leads to the German consulate, the very first German embassy built after the unification of Germany in 1871, technically making it the oldest German diplomatic building in the world. Further down the road are Beşiktaş and Dolmabahce Palace, each covered in separate videos. The Marmara Hotel was built in 1976 and has excellent views of the city from its rooftop bar and restaurant. Siraselviler Caddesi is the gateway to Çukurcuma and Cihangir, the Beverly Hills of Istanbul, about which we have made a separate video. Kebab Corner is the most Turkish thing ever, but is built on land owned by the Aya Triada Church behind it. The first domed Greek Orthodox church built in the city since Byzantine times, in 1880. It was looted and burned in the riots of 1955 and reopened in 2003. Today, it remains the largest Greek church in Istanbul. Istiklal Caddesi is the most famous street in Turkey, historically the Ottoman Empire's diplomatic district, and once home to Leon Trotsky, Giacomo Casanova, King Zog, Agatha Christie, Franz Liszt, and more. Their exploits and anything south of Taksim Square are covered in our North and South Taksim videos, and our Istiklal Caddesi tour, featuring some of the best sights of Istanbul. For guided tours of this and other parts of Istanbul, check out the free walking tours link in the description. At ground level, the only restaurants on Taksim Square are part of Kebab Corner, all serving up kebabs and the ubiquitous wet burger, which isn't as bad as it sounds or looks. The best restaurants on Taksim Square are Okra in the Marmara Hotel and City Lights in the Intercontinental Istanbul, both with breathtaking views. For breakfast, head down Saraselviler Caddesi to Van Kahvaltı for the best Turkish breakfast in Taksim. For English-speaking social events, pub quizzes and more, get in touch with our partners Yabancı through the link in the description. Taksim Square has its own metro station, Taksim Meydanı, at the far north end of Istiklal Caddesi, as well as the Taksim Funicular Railway, which takes you down the hill to Kabataş Ferry Terminal. Airport buses leave from alongside the Point Hotel next to the square. From Taksim Square, take in the best sights of Istiklal Caddesi, or follow İnönü Caddesi to Beşiktaş or Saraselviler Caddesi to Cihangir. And make sure to watch our videos on all these places before heading out.
Thanks for watching. Have you been to Taksim? If so, please leave a comment and let us know what you think of our video, and like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest content.
Links to all other videos, hotels and free walking tours mentioned here are listed in the description, along with relocation services to help new arrivals settle into Istanbul. And while you're here, check out another one of our videos about the history and sights of Turkey. Thanks, and see you next time.